Hello, my name is Linda, also known as Tortajala around the internet. I love creative journaling and all things stationery. And today I wanted to share the process of making a traveler's notebook standard size insert from scratch. I'm using papers that I have designed for my Ko-fi members in the month of July and August. And I'm making this insert because August is a month of vacation here in Italy, and I will be having visitors. My family is visiting, and we will be road tripping here and there. And I have used official traveler's notebook inserts before, but I realized that I can also make my own using papers that perhaps match the theme of what I'm journaling a bit more. So I have this beautiful rustic sunflower pattern paper that I laminated, so that will be my insert cover. So all of these papers that I'm using, again, I've designed and they're for my Ko-fi members. You can check out the link in the description if you're interested. So for all of these pattern papers that I'm using in my insert, I have basically printed them out with my home printer using regular printer paper. I believe it's the Navigator brand, like copy paper, so it's nothing really special. It's just regular paper, but I do laminate the paper that I'm using as the cover of my insert to make it a little more sturdy and stronger since it is the cover itself. But there's a big mix of paper designs here, sort of tropical themed as well as Tuscan Hills themed, and I like using regular copy paper because it just works out fine. Like, I don't want it to be so thick that it will bulk up my insert and my journal unnecessarily, but I do want it to be sturdy enough because I'm adding collage like photos, embellishments, stickers, other little tidbits, as well as like tip-ins and taping things in with washi tape. So what I realized over time is I actually don't like the thinner papers as much. A lot of people use like Hobonichi or Tomoe River paper, but I don't like them because they're so thin. When you add a lot of photos and elements, it's almost like the thin paper doesn't hold up to the heavy elements that you've added to it. So I'm fine just using regular copy paper. It's super budget friendly and it works fine, and I can print any type of design that I want on it, so that I start out my pages with some kind of like color or pattern rather than just totally blank white paper. So after printing out all of the papers, front and back borderless, I'm just arranging them in an order that I prefer, and I am folding every single page in half because it's just easier to line them up that way. But I'm pre-folding everything and basically like creating my insert and making sure it is the order of pages that I want. Of course, I will be trimming this insert down to size at the very end because I want it to be standard TN size, but I won't waste the offcuts of paper because I can save those to use throughout the insert as I use this to like tip in, collage things, create embellishments, that kind of thing. And it will all match because they are similar designs, so it works out perfectly. So I'm going through and just folding each of the papers to make sure that it's creased properly and they sit together nicely. And of course, you can arrange the order. I've printed the designs like front and back, so they're like a pattern paper that's double sized with the same design. But of course, you can use any kind of pattern paper that you might have, scrapbooking paper that you buy. Or print completely different designs, and maybe a different design on the front and back. It's really up to you what you want to use. I just prefer to do it this way because it is easier, and this is regular printer paper, so of course there might be like a little bit of ghosting. So I find that using just the same design on both sides, it just works out better. And for the order or the number of pages of my insert, I did try to calculate how many pages I would need. I'm doing the whole month of August, so it's roughly like a month, right? 30 to 31 pages would be needed. If I'm using a full spread, meaning 2 pages for each day, then I would need like 15 or 16 sheets of paper to get the number of pages that I need for the entire month. You might want to throw in like another page extra if you like to have like beginning title pages or like ending, summary pages as well. But if you only use like 1 page per day, let's say, then you could have that and use only 8 or 9 sheets of paper, and your insert won't be as like bulky. It's really up to you and depends on how you journal and memory keep and what you're using your insert for in the end. Remember, of course, also throughout your insert or your journal, you can always add in like tip ins and flip outs and things like that. It's actually fun to add in those things, so you don't really have to worry about running out of space. If you're not sure, obviously, like what day you might have more pictures or more things to add, you just never know. I often use also ephemera that I pick up along the way as like a tip in or a fold out. Let's say there was a brochure or buy a postcard for like a new spot that you are visiting, and actually use that as like a fold out or an extra page in your particular insert. So that will give you more space to add even more photos and add your description and journaling and writing as well. So after I have all the pages and the order of my inserts, pages decided on, I'm just going to line things up properly, and I'm using my Traveler's company like clips to sort of hold the papers together, but that's probably not the best type of clip to use. You probably should use binder clips or something because they would hold them more securely. Also, because I have so many pages, it's like shifting and just sort of being fussy to me. But what I want to do is line it up properly as much as possible so that I can punch holes to sew my insert together. So I use a very simple method. I think it's called a pamphlet stitch, where I just punch holes in the insert, at least 3 holes to make sure that it's balanced and secure. But you can use more holes if your page is bigger or you have more pages that you want to keep secure. And I just thread through like string in and out until you get back to where you started and tie a knot. Basically, it's like the simplest way to stitch together pages, and it works perfectly for me. I had to go like searching through my tools, so I might speed up some parts, but I do want to show you things also in real time to sort of let you know that like this process isn't as difficult as it might seem, and it won't take you that long to really create your own insert that is custom and specific to whatever your journaling needs might be. So I use an awl, which is that little metal pointy tool, to poke holes in my papers. Then I just use some string to sew it up together. Of course, you can use bookbinding materials because they do sell very specific, like bookbinding string, waxed linen string, all the tools. But really, I feel like anything is strong enough as long as it will hold your papers together and won't snap or break. So if you're using string, if you hold the string in your hand, like with 2 hands, and try to like snap it, like pull on it really hard, if it snaps, then obviously that's not very strong string, right? But if any kind of like, you can go to the hardware store and just get some linen string, and that would be good enough. So I couldn't find my usual bookbinding string. I have no idea where it is and where I put it. Maybe I finished it. I do not even remember. So I ended up using just embroidery thread. A lot of strands, so it holds up together, but it works just fine. So it really just goes to show that you don't really need so many special tools or supplies to create something yourself from scratch. You really can make do with what you have around you, as long as it will work for the purpose. And I know that some people don't sew their inserts, they just staple them. So if you do have a stapler or one that you can open up so you can staple in the middle, You can use that, and that is easier, but I don't prefer that method at all. I think that metal staples, like, I don't like the metal, first of all, and then I also find them to be less strong, because I add so many elements and photos and ephemera and stickers, and my inserts really chunk up. Um, if it's bound together only by staples, I find that pages can come off and things can start to detach. So that's why I prefer to sew my own inserts, because I find it just to be stronger. Like, the pages are not going to fall out unless literally your string, snaps because it wasn't strong enough, or you're like ripping pages out basically. Otherwise, it's going to be held together through whatever use and wear and tear and collaging and, all the things that you do. Like, my inserts start out like very thin, just the pages, but they will get to be like 2 or 3 centimeters, like chunky. So they still hold up. So that's why I prefer sewing my inserts together instead of stapling them. But again, it depends on the number of pages that you're working with, as well as how much stuff do you add into your journals. Like, some people do add a few photos and they do mostly writing, so it's really not chunking up much. So it really depends on your style and what you do. So you have to fit everything to your particular needs. And I was definitely sort of fussing around in trying to bind this thing, because I felt a bit rusty because I haven't done this in a while, even though I have been doing it for many years. I just sort of lost track of all my supplies and stuff. But what I'm doing is getting a very old book and using it as like a stand almost for my stack of papers, because then I can stick in all the papers into the center and use that book as like a stand to hold it in place so that I could poke the holes. And what I'm doing is just measuring to make sure that I poke the holes like semi equidistant, which helps with obviously the stability of the book, but also visually if you see like the holes and where the thread goes through. But it's not really a big deal. You could probably eyeball it because there's only 3 holes. So you could eyeball it if you want, but if you want to be just a little bit more exact, then go ahead and measure out, put little dots with a pen, and then you can use your awl or whatever sort of pointy stick you have to make the holes. Now, if you don't have an awl, household items, I don't know, maybe you can use a needle as well. It's just that a needle doesn't have a handle, so it makes it really hard to like punch through a lot of papers if you don't have that. I would not recommend like punching holes with a hole puncher kind of thing, because the holes are way too big. You don't want the holes to be big because it will mean that your pages can shift, right? When you put your string through, you basically want your holes like in sewing. You just want to pre-punch a little bit so it's easier to put your needle through, but you don't want it to be so big that your page is going to shift around and cause like them to rip or, any other kind of issue. So basically, I am poking the holes in these pages and prepping them. Then I'm going to go find some string. And again, I could not find my bookbinding string at all. So I'm just using embroidery thread, but lots of strands, so that what I'm doing is just going in one hole and then going to the next hole, in and out, all the way up to the top, then back all the way down to the bottom. And again, there's only 3 holes here, so it's like pretty quick and easy. But I'm basically going in and out until I get back to where I started. And then I want to make sure that everything is tight and there's nothing like twisted. And also, you don't want to like pierce through your own like the strand, you know what I mean? You want them to be in the holes like next to each other, the string, but not like piercing through, because otherwise you're creating sort of like unnecessary stress in the binding. But basically, just make sure everything is as neat as you can get it, and then pull it tight so that your string, your binding is taut. So not so tight that you're like bending the paper, but of course tight enough that it's going to keep together and not like the pages are not going to shift. And I basically just tie a double knot and I'm done with it, like pretty easy peasy. I prefer to tie my knot on the inside binding at the bottom. That's just what I've always done, so I just automatically do that. But you don't have to tie the knot there. Some people like to tie it on the outside binding and create like a little bow. Some people like to tie it on the outside on the very top because then you can string through some beads or charms or other decorations. So that's really up to you in what you prefer for your particular insert. And now that my insert is actually basically done almost, I'm going to trim it to size. So the reason why you want to trim after creating your book is because if you want that really nice flush edge on the ed on at the edge of an insert, then you want to do this at the very end, because when you fold papers and like smush them all together, like the very outside paper and the very inside one, they're like millimeters apart because of the binding, right? And the fact that there's so many papers stacked together. So if you cut your papers to size before and then bind them together, the edge of your insert is going to be sort of like diagonal or like shifted, like layered almost, it might seem, rather than having a flush edge. But if your paper is bigger, then you can definitely trim after the fact, and that will give you a flush edge on the side. So that's what I'm doing right now. My paper here in Europe is A4 sized, so the height is already correct right now, and I just need to trim off the right side a little bit so that it becomes a standard size TN insert size. And the part that I am cutting off is still like pattern paper, and so I'm going to keep that to the side and use it in my journal as I go through and work on it, because these papers are obviously going to match since they are the same designs, and I can use them for like tip-ins, for creating like pockets, for adding like any kind of fold-outs, or for titling or embellishments. Definitely use those cutouts so that nothing goes to complete waste. And that is sort of a nice way to already have like a whole set of sort of embellishments or papers that you can use in your journal that completely match with the whole theme, color, designs, papers, everything like that. And when you're cutting papers, you just go slowly, and like people seem to have a tendency to like push really hard, but really you should just go very lightly and go through multiple times, and it'll just cut nicely in that way. And I didn't round the edges of my insert because pretty much all of my traveler's notebook inserts, like the standard ones, like they're all just regular straight edge corners. So I'm just going to keep it like that. But some people do prefer rounded corners, so you can definitely use a corner rounder tool and round like all the corners if you prefer that look. So you can see it fits into a standard size traveler's notebook just fine. And what you can do is use a hole punch and punch the top and bottom binding area like a half circle so that it creates a little groove for your traveler's notebook elastic to sit in. That will help it basically to sit in your traveler's notebook like more securely, if that is something that you care about or want to do. And it works well with this created insert because I laminated the cover. I have like that extra, plastic lining like on the top and bottom, so there's a lot of extra space. So it definitely caters itself to like creating those little half punch circles so that it'll sit really nicely and won't shift. But it's obviously not necessary. It's just a complete extra kind of thing. I noticed that the lamination definitely makes the page obviously a little bit bigger because it has like that extra border. So I'm going to go ahead and just cut off like a millimeter off. It's obviously a very slight detail and doesn't really matter. But again, your choice if you want to do that or not. If you don't have a laminator and you still want to create like in your own insert, you can just use thicker paper like a cereal box, any kind of cardstock that you have, so that your cover is obviously thicker than the inner pages, just to protect it. Some people also just tape up some type of paper. You can use like really wide masking, not masking tape, like clear tape, packing tape, and that will do the same thing as a laminator. It's just easy, when you have a laminator. And I believe that you can also buy laminating sheets. What is it called? Like contact paper or something like that, that we use to, in the olden days, I remember we used that for our like book covers in school and stuff. So there are definitely other options, even if you don't have like a laminator machine. You can use something else to basically give your insert cover like more stability, more strength, so that it holds up to the wear and tear, since it is the outside cover of a journal. And really the last thing to do, once this insert is complete, is I probably need to put it under like a big stack of books, because it tends to open up since these are new papers. So I probably need to like stack it up, and make sure it folds over properly for a longer period of time, so that it will hold up. So let me show you this finished insert from start to finish, just so that you can see how it is now that it's complete and ready to go. You can see the pages that I've created here. These are just home printer printed pages, and they've got pretty patterns on them and a variety of colors, and you can see the cutouts I can use and add like more embellishments and things. I also printed out the journaling cards and like faux washi tapes and things. Then I can use all of these together, since they're all the same designs and theme and they match, so everything really goes together. So these are the pages of my insert that I will be using for the month of August. And of course you could have printed multiples of some pages as well. They don't have to be all different pattern papers. Some people like plain pages, some people like more colored pages. It really depends on your preference and what project you're doing. So you can see I use, traditional Traveler's Company notebook inserts, as well as making my own. And I think it works both ways, and it just gives you the flexibility to create whatever it is you might need for whatever trip you might have, whether you need a lot of pages or just a little pages. I know sometimes people are looking for smaller inserts, so they might take apart an insert because they don't want that many pages, because their trip is a little, quicker. Obviously, I'm making a very big insert because it's for a full month, but let's say you had a 3-day trip or something like that. That's why Traveler's Company does make the short trip insert, but sometimes I think you need even less. Or you can buy an insert and actually split up the pages and just create your own custom covers and then sew them back up and make multiples out of one insert, so that they are sewn together rather than using the staples, which, they do hold up pretty well because I have used them before, but I've also had some that have fallen apart and had to like tape them back in. So this is the insert, like sort of half used, so I just wanted to jump in and show you a little bit, as I have like more tip-ins and things like that put into it. It's not complete yet, but sort of like half used. But I just wanted to show you that, it's getting chunkier, it's holding up without issue, and I have like date stickers inside and basically putting in pictures and tipping things in. And I'm trying to find a page that I can show you. So I think this page I can show, which basically has my son and like this whole Tuscan platter that we had of cold cuts. So yeah, I tip in a lot of photos and embellishments and ephemera that I find along the way as we are vacationing and out and about. So that's how I used my insert, and just wanted to show you that process and show you that it's very easy to create your own inserts, so don't hesitate to try it out. Let me know what you think about this Traveler's Notebook insert down in the comments. I would love to hear from you, and thank you so much for watching this video and supporting me here. If you didn't already know, I am building my community on Ko-fi. If you join as a member, you can basically download all the art prints, papers, and journaling cards, or you can go to the shop and buy one-off designs. Of course, I also have a blog at tortajala.com, and there you will find totally free printables, so you can download some pattern papers and try them out for your next journal. Thank you so much, and until next time, bye.